take a look at how you wrap up, how you save the best for the end. What have you set up and set up that you pay off at the end? All these things that we've been talking about. How do you bring that to the end? Okay, let's get to those questions.
Greg, uh, uh, host prerogative. Let me start this off. Um, I I don't know that I, at my current level or where I am in writing, that I have a novel. I have about 1,500 words, maybe 2,000. So very quickly, what's the difference between outlining, writing, laying out a short story versus my next American great novel?
But at the risk of sounding facetious, length. A novel should be, to be satisfying, a novel should be like 80,000 words. There are agents out there who will literally say, "Don't send me your work if it's fewer than 60,000 words," because that's not a satisfying story, and that's not what publishers want to publish. Also, you can do the opposite. You got 120,000 words. You've probably got two books there that you want to break up. But 2,000, 3,000 words is a decent short story. 2,000. There are micro. You may know there are micro stories where the word limit is 300. There's a micro story contest where the word limit is 100 words. Can you tell a story in 100 words? Tell the story you want to tell, Gary, and then decide what it is. Okay, this is a short story. There are a lot of authors out there. One of my mentors is one of them, who wrote a short story and then turned it into a novel. So tell the story you want to tell and then decide what you want to do with it.
Okay, thank you very much. That helps me improve mine. Um, for this, we'd like to be as informal or casual as possible. So feel free to unmute and ask a question, and we'll go on to the next one. So go ahead. Anybody next?
Yeah. Uh, um, so just continuing about the ending, what if there's you want to leave this open for treatment for a couple of different future stories? Is that
What if
something
it's what if it's
you're
what
doing?
if it's the first in a series? Absolutely. Again, to oversimplify the rules, the guidelines, wrap up your story because the satisfying part is there's an end to this story, and then there is an opening for where it goes next. You do both, yeah. But you need people will feel cheated if at the end of your first book there is no denouement, there is no climax. Um, you need to have that arc of the story with something left over. Again, and there you don't even necessarily need that. If you look at Lee Child, if you look at the Jack Reacher stories, um, it's just his character, and he ends this story, and then the same character has another story. You don't necessarily have to have that cliffhanger. But if you are by design a series, there are a lot of novels out there that Lord of the Rings being one that are a series that was planned as a series from the beginning. So you need to do both. You need to wrap up the main arc of this story and leave us wondering about what's going to happen in this other part of the story. Anyone else?
Can you share your favorite screenwriter story?
um oh it was again both screenwriting and television writing. I've heard other people say this, but I literally one day in a television writer's room looked at a couple other writers and said, "Can you believe they're paying us to do this?" It really was. It was a great job. I took when I was a screenwriter, I took meetings at the Polo Lounge. I took meetings in producers' houses and the Malibu colony. And for those of you who aren't here, don't know, it's this rich stretch of Malibu beach where you guards have to let you in and blah blah blah. Um, it's really a heady experience, or it can be. Um, just
I was really hoping to learn more about the screenwriting process. So it would be wonderful if you would come back and do one of those classes for us.
I'd be happy to. Well, you guys talk amongst yourselves and decide. But there is, right, there is uh, I tell you a quick story. I was really full of myself when I started writing television. I had one of the scripts I had uh, written had been nominated for a minor award, and I was aware of what they were teaching at UCLA, and I literally sat down with the head of the department and said, "You're teaching television writing wrong. You're teaching it like screenwriting, and there's a difference." And I was really full of myself because I'd just done both. And she might as well have said, "Get the hell out of my office." But what she said was, "Come and show me how to do it right." Bless her heart. I found out later there were already people in the department saying the same thing, and they were already moving to change the way they taught television writing. So I was just part of that movement. I wasn't leading it or anything, but she didn't bother to mention that. Yeah, we already know that. We're already doing that. She just said, "Come and show me how to do it right." So go ahead.
Yeah, hi. It in the story, the book that I've got, I have sometimes characters making what was a contemporary reference to something. So, for example, I got a character, and all she keeps hearing in her head is "Danger, Will Robinson, Danger, Robinson." Well, the problem is, some reader has no idea probably what the Danger Will Robinson is about. So, to what extent is that a problem, or any thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thought is let somebody else tell you that's a problem. If the publisher or the publisher's editor says this is a problem, then it's a problem. Until then, there are here's for those of you, by the way, you should all be in a critique group. There are enough of you here. You should form a critique group. You can do it on Zoom. You don't have to be in the same place. But in a critique group, I'm in more than one. Let's say there are 5 members of the critique group, and one of them says, "I don't get this reference. What does Danger Will Robinson mean?" You can assume 20% of your reading audience will not get that reference, because 20% of your this is the way they do surveys, right? They survey 1,000 people and they tell us how 30 million of us are going to vote, and they're pretty close because those percentages tend to expand. So you need to say you say to yourself, either it's okay that 20% of my audience doesn't get that, or no, I'm going to go fix that because I want everybody to understand. And this has happened to me more than once. Somebody says in my critique group, "I don't get this," and I'm thinking to myself, "Okay, well, I don't care." And I don't say that out loud, of course. And then somebody else says, "I didn't get that either." Oh, that 20% just went to 40%, and now I'd better pay attention. But so you could, if you have a critique group, you can defer to them. But also, you just might say, again, questions like that: is this reference outdated? Let the editor of your publisher tell you that somewhere down the line. No, I think you need to upgrade this reference. What's a more recent reference that means the same thing? But hey, Danger Will Robinson works for me. So yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
This is Dane speaking. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. You started your presentation with the idea that all sorts of storytelling rather is similar. And,
Yes.
and I'll confirm that. I mean, some of what I write is for radio drama.
Okay.
And I tell you, I kept following what you said, and I said, yeah, That's for sure. Now there's things about radio drama that make it a little bit different, but I even write 30-second commercials,
Mhm.
which in my opinion follow your original statement. They have to have things that you've talked about. So uh so my question really is, uh who who writes best about how to write humor?
Oh, oh, that's, that's not my forte. I
Okay.
will tell you. In television, writing comedies is literally, those people are, their formatting is different. Everything about the way they approach it is different. You have to have a joke a page kind of thing.
Mhm.
None of that is my bailiwick. Um, I will say though that I think humor is important, and I think in the most serious dramas you need a little humor, and in the funniest of shows you need a little drama. And if you look at the, again, back to television, if you look at the TV shows that we love, those comedies that are a little sad are the ones that, or impactful in serious ways, are the ones that affect us the most. MASH is probably one of the greatest examples of that. That's
Mhm.
technically a comedy.
Yeah.
Um, they literally had our laugh track, and the writers, I used to know those guys. I used to sit at the feet of the MASH writers when I was a young man and just getting started. Um, and they talked about the fact that they argued against the laugh track, and they finally got the compromise of, when it's a funny scene, there can be a laugh track. When it's a serious scene, there isn't.
Ah,
But I do believe that the best of all stories are a combination. The
mhm.
most serious story should have some humor somewhere, and the funniest story should grab your heart from time to time.
Well, a good joke starts with something that grabs you right away, because you may only have a minute to tell your story. You can't mess around. You got to really grab them right off the bat. So, and thank you for coming here. This is really, to me, it's very beneficial, and I would be interested in your script writing too, because I
Well,
do.
well, again, you guys work that out and let me know.
So, Greg, I did have another question. We didn't really talk a lot about character arc, but how much, if you're going to do a series
Mhm.
with your main characters, how much arc do they really need? Like, I think I'm doing a cozy series right now, and I think of Murder She Wrote. You know,
Mhm.
we don't see a lot of in the TV show. There's not a lot of character arc for Angela Lansbury. She just so when you're doing a series like that, no, I know Jack Reacher has some, but it's not like if you're just writing a standalone novel where you have one book or he's one way at the beginning and by the end he's healed.
Right.
What's your thought about that across series?
I'm all for character arcs. Again, you salt them through. You don't need to tell us all about them, but little places, especially little quiet places where we learn more about your character. Again, there are plot driven novels and there are character driven novels, and one of the ways for me, and I think for others, a plot driven novel, you're reading faster at the end, you want to know what happens. A character driven novel, we often slow down. We don't want to let these characters go, we don't want to get to the end, we want to keep them, and that is the mark of a good character driven novel. I hate to let these characters go. I would love to see them in another book. I don't want to stop. Um, and I hesitate because I really don't like boundaries much at all. But is your novel character driven or plot driven? And can it be a combination where we want to read faster because we want to know how it ends, but we don't want to give up these characters because we hate to see them go? Yeah. But in order to feel that way, we have to know about them. We have to know their hearts, or I don't think we care.
Thanks.
If there's
Got a
any,
question, Gary?
yeah, but I want it to be the last one. So if there's anybody else that has a question, please ask it. But I've got a kind of a wrap-up question.
I think John's got a question.
Just circling back to what I asked you before about your favorite screenwriter story, and also one of your first points was the importance of you called it an elevator pitch. That's
Right.
one of the reasons why we have our stand-up during our conference. We ask folks to get up and at least try to do an elevator pitch that isn't 20 minutes, because there's no elevator ride that is that long. But the story that is related to my question to you that I just wanted to share real quickly is my sister knows someone who works on Morgan Freeman's production company. And she tells a story about someone that sat next to her on an airplane ride, and they struck up a conversation, and this guy reluctantly gave his elevator pitch. And to make a long story short, that guy was the guy that wrote Space Cowboys.
Okay.
So he was a one-hit wonder. And so one, it's important to do your elevator pitch, and two, it's important to know that it may actually pay off. So I'd like your thoughts on that.
Well, and three, that guy was lucky. Right place, right time. She was sitting on that airplane and she liked what she heard. And that's just dumb luck. Anybody else before Gary wraps us up here? Go ahead, Wes. Wes, you're muted.
Yes, sir. I don't want to interrupt some very intelligent questions with a very dumb question. But I just got in from Michigan last night, so I was on Eastern Time. So unfortunately, although I made an effort to tune in at the right time, I tuned in an hour late. So I missed a good portion of this wonderful broadcast. I can see that it was exceedingly good. Is there any chance of getting a replay of this broadcast, or is it a one-time thing?
The broadcast is being recorded, so talk to Gary about how you can get a copy. But that, again, for those of you who are here, I'm assuming Gary would give you access to the recording.
Thank you, sir.
Good.
Thank you again for the wonderful presentation. As little of it as I was able to receive. I am running I'll put on this picture. I'm running I submitted an article to the World War II Museum newsletter, a little bit about the 96th Division, a little bit about my dad, and so I'm happy about that. But I'm not as accomplished by any means as you wonderful folks, but I'm in the game.
Okay.
Wes, we are recording it. People more technically savvy than me are gonna try and help me spruce it up and make it presentable. My intent is to put it on our website. There's a number of other writers education videos there, and it is my goal so I can do my job another time to get this recorded and get it out there for people to view. Two comments, Greg. Number one is I'm very happy to see that you didn't fall back on what I believe is the cardinal sin of a good speaker, and that is a view graph is a crutch for a weak mind. So I'm glad to have the dialogue and listen to you directly. My next comment is, and this is really and I think the board of directors knows that I'm going to be approaching them for what my program is, and it will most likely involve you coming back. So my question is for not you, Greg, but to show you the diversity of this group. I'd like people to raise their hand if they have a published novel. Now, before you do that, please, Don, do not raise your hand 7 times. Just once will be enough. But if you've gone through the process and published a novel, please raise your hand because Greg can teach to any level, but I just want to know where he is or where you guys are. Okay, so Okay, so people like me who have the great American novel in their mind, but it isn't quite through the finish line. How many of us out there are there? Okay, this didn't help at all, Greg. You're going to have to split the difference.
Jeannie, do you have a question? And you're muted, by the way. Or are you just raising your hand? Okay. Maybe Jeannie's just raising a hand.
Just raising a hand. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right. No worries.
Bless you.
This has been great. Thank you so much, Greg and Gary and everybody. I've got to bail out for something else, but I really like this. For me, I learned a few good points, and I hope to see one on, focusing a little more on the screenwriting play type approach, because that's an area of interest as well. So thank you all very much, and sorry, I got to bail. Bye-bye.
No worries. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Greg, I want to thank you too, Greg. I learned a boatload of stuff.
Good.
So
Good.
thank you.
Glad to hear it.
Now, as the sign off, I will tell you we have a cardinal rule in MWSA, and that is we encourage writing articles, poems, short stories, features, novels, but our cardinal rule is no disparaging of the military. Having spent 22 years in the Air Force and flying a desk in all its glory, disparaging pilots, in my mind, is okay. So I love your story. My apologies, Mr. John. All right. On that note, bless you all, and we'll see you at the next one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Gary, for pulling this off.
No worries.
This was a great show.
You bet. Good times, good stuff.
How do I leave?
With you.